Welcome to the Property Nomads Podcast. Welcome to episode 351. And these are our top 5 countries that we've visited. And they're in no particular order. We sat down and we thought long and hard about this, and we thought it was difficult enough to come up with a top 5, let alone trying to then come up with a top 1. And there's multiple reasons for each country. We're going to deep dive into why we like these countries. A lot of it would have come down to the time that we had there, the experiences that we had there. And we'll go through this list. And again, these are in no particular order. We didn't feel it was fair to try and work out a number 1. Let's say it was difficult enough to rack our brains with top 5 and to having to eliminate a lot of countries. But hey ho, we have done that anyway. But we'll start with Italy. And the reason we love Italy is the food and the culture. The couple of times that we've been to Italy, we've been to Milan years ago, and then in our own time, not as Aaron and myself, but as with family, etc. We've both been to Rome. Well, we both agreed that Rome is just a phenomenal place. Obviously, a lot of history there as well. The food is really, really good. Obviously, you can get to go around the Vatican City as well, things like the Sistine Chapel. It's just a lot of culture, a lot of things to do. Very, very nice city is Rome. On top of that, I've been to Trieste, up in the northeast of Italy. Yet to go to Venice. I'd love to go there. But when we look back at times that we've had in Italy, it's always been a very good experience. People have been very welcoming. The food's been excellent. The trips and the transport have been hassle-free. We've seen some cracking games of football, which always helps. And there's just so much to see and do. And that is why Italy makes it into our top 5 countries that we've visited. Another one, Argentina. Argentina is an exceptional country. It's rough and ready. And I mean that in a very loving way. It's a very rough and ready country. Everyone's down to earth. Yes, it has a lot of economic problems. We understand that. It's a lot of inflation, etc. But at the same time, as a foreign visitor, we definitely use that to our advantage. That is the main reason why Argentina's on this list. It's because when we went, it was incredibly cheap. And the reason for that is that they were operating a dollar azul, sort of a black market exchange rate. So what we were doing at the time, and we've done an episode about this a long time ago on the travel segment of this podcast, was that you could take in US dollars. So if you're lucky enough to have US dollars on you, or other currencies it turned out to be, you could turn up and you could then get a black market exchange rate. Now at the time, if I remember correctly, it worked out at about 13 pesos to a pound. Bear in mind, this was back in 2014, so a lot's changed since then. But because of the taking dollars out, because we were in Uruguay before, so we took dollars out and then we got a much better rate of those dollars. We ended up exchanging the dollars, I think, for about 15, 16 pesos for a dollar. So once you do the math and you're going from pounds to US dollars to then converting that at quite a sexy rate and then taking your pesos, we ended up getting about 22 pesos, 23 pesos to a pound, which in effect we increased our amount of holdings by about 80% just by doing that. As a result of that, when you're going around and it's 40 pesos in a pub, you can get a cracking bottle of wine from a local supermarket for even 30 pesos. Believe it or not. So when you start doing the mathematics on that, it made Argentina, I would say, the cheapest country that we visited in our South American, Central American adventure that we went on. And that's why it's on the list. All of that being said, the food is fantastic. They love a good bit of steak over there. A parrillada, I think it's called. Loads of carnes, barbacoas, all of these sorts of things. The wine is fantastic as well. Again, everyone's down to earth. There's a rough and ready atmosphere in Argentina, which is very, very good. Buenos Aires is a gigantic city, really good fun, loads to see and do. It's like the Paris of South America, big wide boulevards, very, very good atmosphere there. And overall, Argentina was very pleasing. And the amount of cash that we saved in Argentina, we ended up, at the time, we were then able to budget going to the Galapagos, which wasn't something that we were budgeting for when we left. So all in all, Argentina, you're absolutely fantastic, and we look forward to coming back to you very, very soon. Another country that is on that list, one of its near neighbours, is Brazil. The Brazilian atmosphere is just sensational. There's a very relaxed vibe in Rio. Other places we went to, Florianopolis, Sao Paulo. I mean, Sao Paulo is just hustle and bustle, big city. Florianopolis and that area, quite relaxed, quite laid back. Our time in Brazil was based around the World Cup in 2014, and the notes that we wrote down: beaches, football, and women. The women were just a lot of window shopping was done in Brazil. A lot of window shopping, but then again, when everyone's walking around in their bikinis, why not? Of course, you have to offset that with there's a lot of budgie smugglers there as well. So be careful when you're moving your eyes around. Unless you're that way inclined, then absolutely, there's a lot of people in budgie smugglers, which you might enjoy looking at when you're on the beach as well. One thing we really liked about Rio was that on Sunday mornings, what they would do is close quite a lot of the main roads. They would close off the main roads so that you could take a walk on them or cycle, skateboard, whatever it is you wanted to do. They basically closed the roads for the people on a Sunday morning. And again, everyone was out and about on a Sunday morning as a result of that. So that was quite cool. Again, food's really good. Had a great time. Saw some wonderful places. Foz do Iguaçu we saw from the Brazilian side. And again, just overall, a very delightful place to go. A really good place to hang out and enjoy yourself. So that's why it's on the list. Another country on the list, and again, comes down to being quite cheap and cheerful, Nicaragua. Now, in our time of travelling, and we were doing a sort of a fish hook. So we started in South America, ended up heading along up into Bolivia, Peru that way. So we were doing a reverse fish hook. And you get to Ecuador, Colombia, and you start hearing stories from people that have travelled around Central America, and then they've flown into Colombia or Ecuador. So you get this mixture of people. You've got people travelling in one direction and a lot of people travelling in the other direction. And a lot of people said that Nicaragua was really, really nice and really cheap. And they didn't like Costa Rica that much. Now, Costa Rica, from experience, and we weren't there for that long because we were beelining through the country to get to Nicaragua, it seemed all right. And I'm sure with a lot more time, it's probably a very, very nice place. But when you compare what's in Nicaragua to Costa Rica, and then you look at prices and so forth, Costa Rica seems relatively expensive, very expensive by Central American standards. And no wonder there's a lot of people from the USA that go to Costa Rica. So again, not trying to bash Costa Rica there. We flew through Costa Rica and had a decent time. But the point being, we were taking advice of people that were travelling, and they said, well, Nicaragua's got a lot of the same things, and it's just cheaper and it's better and the people are friendlier. That's why Nicaragua's on our list. Really, really nice country. We had some great times hanging out with a couple of American lads, watching a lot of American football, because it was getting to the business end of the season. The food was inexpensive. People were very, very friendly. We'd done some great activities. Volcano boarding springs to mind. That was really, really good. I've done that in Nicaragua. Some of the places are Leon and Granada. Granada is just a wonderful colonial gem in the middle of Nicaragua. The weather was great. We had a superb time on the beach in San Juan del Sur as well. It's just everything about that place. It's very easy to get around. It's got a nice bit of hustle and bustle to it, but at the same time, everyone is relatively relaxed, friendly, happy to see you, as long as you try and speak a bit of Spanish, which is, we said this in a previous episode as well, learning a bit of the local language is always useful. And overall, just a really, really nice country. Look forward to going back. And number one on our list, or the last country we're going to go through on this podcast episode, the United States of America. And that might take you a bit by surprise, because you might think, well, we want to be as far-fetched as possible, and lads, you let us down. We didn't think it would be the USA at number one. We thought long and hard about this, and the reason that USA is number one is it's a country that has everything. It has absolutely everything. We took a land trip over there in 2011. We took mainly Greyhound buses all the way from Los Angeles to New York, with the exception of between Atlanta and Washington, where we used Amtrak, so the rail network. And we had a great time. We had an absolutely brilliant time. The great thing about the United States of America is it's got everything you want. So we've travelled through mountains, we've travelled through deserts, we've travelled through the deep south of America, so that's a completely cracking culture in itself, all the way up to the more business end of the East Coast, Washington, Philadelphia, New York as well. And we've seen a variety of sports over there. We found that because of our accents, that people were super friendly as well. I think the accent definitely helps in that scenario. There's loads to see and do. The food is naughty, without a shadow of a doubt. I still remember walking into Subway in Los Angeles. I've got a foot-long, completely super meat feast. Got double meat, double cheese, with a refillable soft drink, and it was $5, which at the time was about £3, I think, and just absolutely blew our minds. Loads of dirty ass fast food. Jack in the Box. I would say Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Man, you need to get yourself over to the UK. Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles is banging. Popeyes has started to open up over here as well. But overall, with the USA, we just had such a raucous time over there, and we visited so many places: Los Angeles, Vegas, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Atlantic City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New York, DC, Washington DC as well. So to experience coast to coast, overland as well, going by bus, going through the deserts of New Mexico, Albuquerque, all of those sorts of areas, and in general, just a wonderful, wonderful time. So it's a country that's got everything. It was relatively inexpensive at the time. We just had a phenomenal experience. We really, really did. But I would say a shout out as well to Cambodia. We were going to put Cambodia on this list, but decided against it. Nothing against you, Cambodia. We just decided to go with Nicaragua instead. So top 5 countries that we visited, again in no particular order. We've got Italy, we've got Argentina, we've got Brazil, we've got Nicaragua, and we've got the USA. What are your favourite countries? Where have you been? Where would you like to go? Use our social medias to tell us. We'd love to be able to share more experiences as well. But they are our top 5 countries. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at top 5 buildings that we've seen, which sounds, on the face of it, sounds quite interesting, and it definitely is. And then the top 5 places we've ever been, so i.e. a city or a random place that we've been to. So we'll be bringing that to you in the next few weeks, as well as letting you know on how we got on in Turin. As usual, tell everyone about the podcast, like the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast if you don't already, and auf Wiedersehen.